Okay, welcome to the broadcast. This is the third edition of the Destroying Pro-Abort show. Um, this is a show where we keep it real and we don't cater to any pro-abort nonsense. Uh, we don't let stupid arguments like the unborn's a parasite or abortion isn't really killing or any of that other nonsense. We don't let it fly here. We talk about um, we keep it real on the show. We be honest. We talk about logic, talk about legitimate facts, and we don't talk about all these pseudo arguments, pseudo facts, and whatnot. We keep it real on the show, and we get straight to the points. So I want to talk about on this particular show the how pro-aborts go about justifying abortion outside of cases like life-threatening instances and rape, because that is one. Those are two arguments that they like zero in on a whole lot. They go to those arguments just like right off the bat, and my me doing this show today is me trying to pin them down on how they just justify abortion outside those cases. Because most pro-choicers, I think they're pro-aborts, quite honestly, but they will refer to themselves as pro-choicers. Truly believe that outside those cases, abortion should be legal. And in this particular show, we're going to just discuss those specific cases. How do pro-aborts justify abortion outside of cases like rape and life-threatening instances? That's only thing we're going to be talking about on this show today, as far as justification of their position. Because constantly they're going to those other issues to sort of build a foundation on credibility, and it's just shot. We're just gonna wipe all that nonsense out. And how do they justify abortion in general? If they attempt to go to see that angle on this show today, I'm going to keep bringing it back to what's really relevant. I'm going to keep bringing it back to no, we're not going to use those arguments on this show today. If you pride yourself in truly being pro-choice, then you need to find a way to justify abortion outside of those horrific cases. If you truly believe a woman should have a right to choose over her body, then you need to justify abortion, without trying to pull on people's heartstrings and without trying to say, oh, it's not really black and white sometimes. A woman might not be ready to have a child. She could be raped, or she might have her life in danger. No, 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 no. We're not going to do that on this show, because time and time again, I've challenged pro-aborts to argue their positions outside of those cases, and they're never able to do it. Time and time again, I've pressed pro-aborts on saying, look here, if you want to say that abortion should be justified in those cases, let's say I agree with you, then will you join me in banning abortion outside those cases? Like, say a woman conceives and is not ready to have a child, will you then ban abortion outside such cases? And almost always they say no. I rarely see a case to where they be like, well, I see your point, and I would say yes. But the overwhelming majority of pro-choicers do not, in fact, answer no to that question. And this is what this show is about today. Why do they so often say no to that very question? Why do they so often say that women should just have a right to choose, as they put it? That even if you don't appeal to things like rape and life-threatening cases, that they still think a woman should have a right to kill her unborn to exercise control over her body. We're gonna investigate that in today's show. We're not going to entertain, these, side arguments and these side issues that they try to use to manipulate the conversation. And I see that way too often. And we're not going to do that in today's show. We're going to stay on point of justifying abortion in general, because a lot of pro choicers truly believe a woman has a right to her body, you know, outside of cases like rape and life threatening cases. So, what I'm going to do, like always in every show, I'm going to post this show in a number of different places and see if we can get some conversation started. So, give me just one moment. All right, I'm almost done. Just a few more moments. I appreciate everyone's patience. Got that there, and let's see. Let's put the Google Hangouts. Let's put the Google Hangouts link in the chat here, and then I will post this in one more other place. Just one more place I gotta post this in. All right. Okay. Now that that's done, yeah, let's talk some more about this. Really get sick and tired of pro-aborts constantly appealing to these cases and constantly circling around the core issue. Sadly, a lot of pro-aborts I come across do this. They don't want to point to the more pertinent issue. They know that they really truly think a woman should have a right to go into an abortion clinic and get an abortion, even if you don't talk about rape or life threatening cases. They know that. You know dang well they know that. And yet, just about when every time when the conversation really gets deep, those are the two main cases they point to. Why do they do that? I just find that weird. That those are like their bread and butter arguments. I'm going to really see if they have the capacity to not use those arguments in today's show. John the Naturalist says, Antonio, I don't know how you can talk about this day after day. I argued for 8 hours in one hangout. I was depressed for a week. Well, you know what? The reason why I can talk about this day after day is because 2,500 to 3,000 of children are being brutally slaughtered day after day. And I cannot, I just cannot rest, or at least not for very long anyway. There are even times where I would take breaks myself. And I see where you're coming from, man. Trust me, I do. But it's important to me that, this evil be exposed. And it's not, just about me. It's about, it's about the future of our children. It's about mothers who are scared and often, misled to think, abortion is the only answer or the best answer. I mean, the truth is, a lot of mothers don't want to kill their children. If a lot of mothers knew that there was a better way and knew that they had people who cared about them and that, there was better choices out there, there's better options out there, then we wouldn't be seeing these sorts of numbers every single day on average. So I just think about that child brutally just killed in the womb, and I think about those women who have been duped and been deceived to do this shameful act, and it's just so many of them out there just don't know the facts and just are not aware of the truth. And when I think about them, it's just that I can't stop. This is bigger than me, and this is why I do it day after day. And not trust me, man, I understand where you're coming from. It's always important to take breaks and to take a step back and take yourself out of the fight every once in a while. You know what? For me, I take those breaks and then I get right back in the fold. And I'm not going to stop. I truly believe this is what God put me on the earth to do. And I will not relent in that mission. And if somebody's got to do it, you know, there's not too many people out there who's going to want to speak on this subject day after day after day. If, I can take up that mantle and be, one of those people that be like, well, there's someone out there that really truly cares. And I'm not saying you don't care, dude, because I believe you do, but just the overwhelming, depressing, nature of this discussion can, keep most people from speaking on this as often as I do. But if you can find at least one person out there who can go beyond, who can, just really, and for me to go beyond all that, for me personally, relies on the person of Jesus Christ. Without Jesus, I could not do this day after day. Without Jesus, I could not keep going. Without Jesus, I would have given up a long time ago. I ever so rely on his mercy and grace and his guidance to keep going in this fight. I ever so rely upon him. So it's not on my own strength which I do this, by no means. It's upon the strength of Jesus Christ. He says, what you've done for the least of these, you've done for me. And I ever so rely on his strength and his mercy and his peace to lead me in this fight against this evil. So, that's why I do it day after day and why I can continue going in this fight. I truly believe that this is one of the worst, if not the worst evils that exist in our day. I mean, I don't understand how most people can, just walk and, know that, there may be an abortion clinic around their corner and just turn the other way and just turn a blind eye and a deaf ear. I don't get it. Um, some people think I'm too, consumed with this issue. But you know what? Let them think what they want. What's up, John? Good to see you, man.
What's going on?
Just another show.
I was actually writing some Word documents and crap about this, and something that I think in general that liberals are more cunning than Republicans because they have this really intricate way of taking an immoral position and flipping it around and making it seem moral. Then any type of backlash to the immoral position that they're holding then gets turned around and it makes you look. Then that's when all the name coming calls out, the bigot, racist, all that stuff. So
Absolutely.
and I think the epitome of this example would be abortion. I mean, anybody who sees a woman getting kicked in the street is going to be outraged, and then whenever you come to find out that woman was pregnant, you're going to be even more outraged. So, and that's ubiquitous. Everybody thinks that way. So to to go against our own nature and actually kill children in the womb is the wholly immoral thing to do. But the
Yes.
left has made it in such a way that if you are for the children in the womb, the natural position, then you're the one that's trying to restrict rights. And they always take that and flip it. And they're just a lot more cunning than the Republicans are. We don't ever do it this way. And we need to figure out how to fight back because they're doing this on multiple fronts.
Absolutely, man, and that is, a serious problem we have in this culture, man. They've, literally mastered the art of getting people to embrace oppression and it as freedom in moving for progressivism, and I think the good news is though, a lot more people are starting to wake up to their nonsense. I mean, if you look at things like protests at certain Trump rallies, how these people are just losing their minds. If you look at dudes like Milo Yiannopoulos, who's going around speaking against their political incorrectness, and you just see them just losing it. They know that the sort of hold that they've had on the culture for a long time is their grip is weakening all the time, and they know it. And they know the facts are coming out. They know the truth is coming out. They know um, that people are not buying their nonsense anymore. And yeah, it's just there's a cultural paradigm shift happening right now, and but the thing is, they're not going to take it lying down. They're going to get even more violent. They're going to get even more emotional. They're going to get even more deceptive. And it's up to people like us um, to stand firm and to just be like, well, you know what? Yeah, have controlled the culture for so long, but we're not going to take it anymore.
Right. Yeah, and I think there's this fine line. So whenever you look at like progressivism, it's basically just means moving things forward. And then a conservative would be um, conserving basic principles. So something that the progressives they see anything that goes against the norm as being progressive. Like for example, if you rewind us back like 200 years when we had slavery. So we have like Abraham Lincoln. They would claim that he was a progressive because he was trying to move us out of that racist slavery time, right? So
Exactly.
they basically pair any type of their movements with that type of progressivism. So if you look at like abortion would be one. Like there's a reason that we want to conserve the sanctity of life within a mother's womb, but they see it as just another form of progressivism to make it the bodily autonomy and the woman's choice and things like this. And I think again they do that. So they basically look at progressivism in the light of whenever it's actually good, and then apply it to all these terrible things now. Is what I'm getting at.
That's absolutely right, and it's interesting when you make the point now how you they try to look at things in the past like slavery and say what's being conserved. But here's the thing: they want to use that as a conservation. I mean, not what being conservative, but what's being progressive. They want to look at things like trying to end slavery as progression, but a lot of the same people who wanted to end slavery also valued life in the womb. Okay, abortion was illegal at one point in this country, so they'll pick one thing and say it's a progression, and then take another thing which was also in the past from the same people who had a lot of the same beliefs and saying that's oppression. So they like kind of cherry pick and choose which they want to apply to progressing forward and what they want to apply to staying in like sort of a stone age oppressive logic. So they have a very subtle ingenious way that they go about doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a difference between we can shed biases towards like other races and try to shed our biases towards like socioeconomic levels and things like this. Now, those are, I guess you could quote unquote say they're progressive. I mean, you're moving out of an antiquated idea, but that doesn't validate moving out of all sort of older ideas, like the idea that the Constitution matters, the idea that the Second Amendment matters, things like this, the 14th Amendment. I mean, all these. So, yeah, basically, kind of repeating myself, but they try to smuggle in these new ideas on the backs of past ideas that were better.
Absolutely. But if you look at stuff like oppressive slavery, the thing is, and I like how Dinesh D'Souza had put it. You know, you didn't have a culture as a whole that embraced slavery. It wasn't a slave America. It was just a few idiots who used it and oppressed people with it. But the culture as a whole completely condemned the practice and died by the thousands to end it. So it was that element right there that wanted to end it. So you can't just do stuff like call it a racist background or whatever, because there was a lot more people who were not racist who gave their lives to end it.
Yeah, isn't that the funny part? Is kind of the SJW, Black Lives Matter. They kind of like you can see them on campus like yelling at white people about being like slave masters and like all this crazy stuff. And it's funny, half of the states fought against it. They don't get like the Civil War wasn't Iran versus America. It was America versus America, hence the civil part. So all of the North fought, like literally gave their life to abolish slavery. So
Exactly.
how do you know? How do you not? How do you know that my great grandfather wasn't from the North and he actually helped to abolish slavery? And then you're calling me a slave master. I mean, it's just no nuance there at all. It's just a broad brush.
That's absolutely right. And not only that, hey, the North could have been like, hey, you know what, we just want to stay out of it. We don't, we're not wanting to get involved in this war or anything like that. And they could have just let it just continue to be a bad mark on our country. But you know what? When you have people who have true compassion and who believe in true liberation, you just cannot just let that just sit. You cannot just not do anything. I can't remember the guy who said it, but a wise man once said the only way for evil to win at the end of the day is for good men to do nothing, and that's literally the only way. I mean, if it wasn't for people like us in the North, standing up against it, it would have still existed today. If that was something America as a whole embraced. Um, it would still be around today. And the thing is, that they don't want to deal with the fact that a lot of this racism and a lot of this slavery was done by a lot of these people who associate themselves with Democrats, these racist people. The fact of the matter is, a lot of these people are racist was racist then, and they're racist now. They want to talk about, how much they support, diversity and this and that. But when someone's a black conservative, then they want to attack them to death and treat them like they're as if they're still on the plantation. It's ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely it's kind of difficult to be a conservative in general, but to be a black conservative, that definitely brings a lot because seems that there's internal racism from black liberals to black conservatives, at least from what I've seen on like
Hmm.
some of Milo's talks and stuff, where like a black girl stood up and they were like calling her all sorts of crazy names and stuff. So yeah,
Yep,
it's
I've
definitely
experienced
pretty
it
tough.
as a black conservative myself. Yep.
Man, but something that's interesting is basically classical liberalism, which is kind of where Milo stands. It's like a mix of conservatism and libertarianism, and they're all kind of merging together now because the left has become so regressive. It's really, I think, it's starting to compile all these, fringe right groups. Um,
Absolutely.
well, I guess classic liberalism, of course, would be left leaning, but now the actual left is so far left that they're more right leaning. So hopefully
Hmm.
we see some more consolidation and kind of grow our numbers, but who knows?
Absolutely. And the thing is, even though it's no secret that I disagree with stuff like homosexuality, I can still dig what people like Milo Yiannopoulos is doing because I truly believes he stands for true equality. Even though I disagree, know what atheists and atheism, I can still see a lot of them believe dudes like yourself believe in true equality. There's this atheist on YouTube who has, a solid amount of subscribers. He's got like 60, 70,000 subs. He goes by the name of, what the heck is his name? That guy T. He's a libertarian, but he's an atheist, but, he doesn't, uh, he does not like treat any sort of system any different than one another. He doesn't be like, okay, I'm not going to look at Christianity and look at people who have done evil in the name of Christianity and treat it as different than, let's say, those who have done evil in the name of Islam, for example, like a lot of liberals like to do. You
Right.
got these people who are honest and believe in legitimate equality and freedom, and I can dig all that, man. We don't all have to, have to agree on everything, but I believe that, like you said, there's sort of a merging of libertarianism and conservatism, to deal with this sick problem that we're dealing with.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm seeing just people all over the place. It's like, okay, we can have, our discussions. I mean, ultimately, we're still going to have these discussions on if God exists and God does not exist and all this other stuff. We're dealing with a number of different issues right now, and I think we're dealing with people who's trying to destroy our country. And I mean, we're not going to really be able to have those types of discussions if we don't have a country to have those discussions on. So, uh,
Right.
and make go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Keep going.
No, no, it's cool. I was pretty much done.
That's this is part of my gripe with libertarians. Like, they seem to focus on like fringe things, like the hardcore libertarians. They'll talk about like, how we have eminent domain, where we have roads going through personal property and stuff like that. Basically all roads use eminent domain. If we didn't do that, we'd have to go to each farmer's house and ask if we could put asphalt on it, and it would just, there'd be no way. So they focus on weird things like that about how they think the eminent domain's like awful and all these things. And I'm saying, we have to get at some point you have to be pragmatic, and you have to say, okay, what can we really get done here? What can we actually do? And I think that's the point we're at now. It's like, okay, our country seems to be on the brinks. I mean, at least like good portions of the Constitution, even even like First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth, 14th. I mean, on and on and on. So I think that at some point you just have to quit thinking about the fringe ideas and start looking at like, whoa, we really need to get something done. Like, for example, I'm not a Trump supporter at all because I don't think he's a conservative. He's more of a centrist, a nationalist centrist. But
neither am I.
But at the same time, you have to be pragmatic and say, okay, would I rather play Russian roulette with 6 out of 6 bullets or 5 out of 6 bullets? And I'd say I would go with the 5 out of 6, because you got to think about the potentially four open Supreme Court seats, and who's going to fill those. Trump's already rolled out his Supreme Court, 11 of his Supreme Court picks, and they're all conservative. So, I mean, just on that alone, you have to be pragmatic and try to kind of give up some of your ideology for the greater good of the country, I think.
Well, the thing I think is Dinesh D'Souza made a very interesting point, and he said that we're dealing with sort of an unknown and unknown. Like, for example, we know what Hillary's going to do, okay, but we don't really know what Trump is going to do. We're kind of dealing with an unknown versus an unknown. But I mean, I do see your point about him picking a lot of these Supreme Court justices and whatnot. So it's like, I mean, I don't think it's really a compromise to be like, okay, if this dude is going to do some things that's going to, sustain this country, is going to, attempt to turn this country, this mess that we have around. I don't really think it's a compromise to be like, okay, I can get behind that. And, you know, again, it's you got to think about the fact that are you going to even have a country,
Right.
if you don't, want to, like kind of be like, okay, there may be some things he's going to do. Like I may not agree with everything this guy does, but is he gonna do enough to make sure that you have a country to live in tomorrow? Is he going to do enough to make sure that you have freedoms tomorrow? Is he going to do enough to make sure that you have your freedom of speech, the right to bear arms? And at the current time being, he doesn't seem to be against any of those things. He seems to support those things 100%. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, even if there was two Hillarys, each Hillary, I mean, there was a Republican running Hillary and a Democrat running Hillary, and I knew that the Republican one was going to pick the conservative Supreme Court justices, I would go with her. I'm saying, even though I agree with Trump on a shit ton more than I agree with Hillary. I mean, even if he was worse than he is, just knowing he's going to fill those Supreme Court spots with conservatives is enough for me to vote for him. Because Supreme Court seats, that's decades. Like the same people can be on there for like 30 years. So, I mean, 4 or 8 years of a presidency kind of pales in the comparison to how long a Supreme Court justice can do damage. And with losing Antonin Scalia, who is a conservative, it's pretty rough. I mean, we're hanging in the balance right now with a 4-4 split. 4 liberals and 4 somewhat right-leaning Supreme Court justices. So if we start reining in liberals, then goodbye Second Amendment. Abortions will be, I mean, there'll probably be like a week after birth you can abort your kid or kill your kid. I mean, who knows? There could be lots of crazy stuff.
Oh, absolutely, I agree entirely. And yeah, man, I think we definitely are making some very nice waves and some very nice we take their word progress and fighting against their cultural progressivism, but at the same time we still have a lot of work to do. And and you right on that, I'm not a Trump supporter, you're not. I mean, he's really the only option we have on the table right now. I mean, there is nobody else we have on the table right now. So, I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, if you want to if you want to have some sort of confidence that there may be at least one potential person that may believe in this country's ideas, then even if you may not know what he's gonna do, you can only go by at the current time about what he said. And there's a lot of things that I do agree with him on. Like I do agree with him on not being soft on Islam. I do agree with him on gun control, and I do agree with not liberal gun control. I agree with his stance that we should have a right to the Second Amendment. I agree with him on what else? What else? I think like stuff when you're talking about like stuff like this whole bathroom issue. I think he said it should be left up to the states and whatnot, and I think you can make an argument for that. There's a number of different things I can agree with him on, and I think there's enough things that I do agree with him on that sort of overrides the stuff that I don't agree with him on, and he's literally the only candidate right now that we have. So I mean, unless the Republican Party or the conservative or libertarian, whoever wants to bring up someone who's going to be better, who's going to do all those things and more. But I don't see that happening at this point, honestly.
Right. And yeah, to the point about leaving up to the states, I feel like, I mean, maybe I'm missing it, but it seems like Obama is just all about federal law. He just completely throws out the 10th Amendment, which basically says if it's not within the Constitution and it doesn't violate the Constitution in any way, then it's left up to the states. That's basically what that means. So when it comes to stuff like gay marriage, transgender bathrooms, all these things, it's simply it
Mhm.
can't be federal law in any sense. It has to be left up to the states. So, but Obama has this overarching theme where he makes things federal law, which the Constitution says nothing about. So I hope that we can get back to those principles where the states actually matter, and we don't have this overarching, federal government telling the states what to do. That's just antithetical to the Constitution in general. I mean, that's the very reason that the 10th Amendment was put there, so there wouldn't be this umbrella approach.
That's absolutely right. And then I've read a number of different articles by even secularist atheists who didn't like the Supreme Court decision to legalize gay marriage in all 50 states in the way that they did it, because they basically said, look, all right, um, there was no defined context of marriage in any definition, whether heterosexual, homosexual, or what. And then when they made the ruling to legalize it in all 50 states, it just took it to the federal level, and then just said, you know what, the federal level is in charge of it now. And I think that was really, really bad. And I think a whole lot of people, even non-believers, recognize that it's not a religious issue. It's about who do you want to be ruled by. And Antonin Scalia wrote, before his passing, wrote a scathing um, just a scathing piece on the corruption behind that ruling, because the Supreme Court doesn't make laws, but there's been arguments put forth trying to suggest that the issue was a mess with the states and the government. The federal government had to step in. I don't think that's the case at all. I think what happened was, you know, progressive liberals made this a bigger issue than it was, and they knew that most of the time the states was ruling against gay marriage most of the time, and they wanted to find any sort of way to bring it to the federal level because they knew most of the time they was losing those arguments on the state level. I think that's the real issue here, and that's the thing that a lot of liberals like to do, is that when they're losing the issue on the state level most of the time, they like to try to build their case on a federal level. And with people like Obama in charge, they've put all these people who have been legislating from the bench, these liberal judges legislating from the bench, to get their views across, because they haven't been able to successfully get them across in any other way.
Oh, yeah, and guess what? They're there for decades. It's not like their term's up every 4 years or something. So I mean, once you get one in there who's radical, there's not much you can do. They just end up retiring. I mean, look at like I can't think of the old lady that's in there. She's like 80. She's been
That's
there forever.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yes. She's ancient. She looks like she was put on the Supreme Court in the 20th in like the 18th century or something.
Yeah, right. She's been on there forever, like what, 35, 40 years? Yeah, she's
Yeah.
been there for a long time.
So yeah, that
And
it's scary thinking about, 3 to 4 new ones, and I don't know. We'll see, I guess. But I think as far as the polls, I think it's pretty early to tell. But it looks like Trump's losing by up to like 5 to 7. He's only losing by 2 points in some other polls. So I don't know. I looked at some of his stuff. I don't know if you saw that paper, the analysis of his funding come out, but it was significantly lower than Mitt Romney's this time in 2012. So I don't know. I don't know if it's just because the RNC isn't backing him yet because there hasn't been the convention or what the deal is, but he needs to get going with that.
yeah, I agree. And not only does he need to get going with that, I mean, the RNC definitely isn't going to help him at all. I think they're just trying to sabotage him every chance they get, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't have to believe the guy's a conservative, but here's the thing, man. This issue, this election is bigger than any one of us. We're not in any way compromising our principles by trying to, um, find this stuff that people. Because I mean, again, if somebody can put a better candidate up and get them better traction, then I'd like to see it happening. But I don't see anybody making that argument. Then they want to be like, well, they would be like, well, you don't like Trump or whatever. But I mean, are do you have a better answer? What is your answer? Um, because I mean, ultimately, I mean, I haven't seen anybody give a better argument. Like, again, I don't agree with Trump, but hey, I don't see somebody put somebody better up there. I don't see any better ideas being put up there. I just see this whole sort of attack Trump this, attack Trump that. Like, that's not actually you know talking about any ideas. That's not actually talking about any kind of strategy at all. You're just trying to attack a man left and right. And how does that do anything for your party? And you wonder why that conservatives have lost election after election after election for the past several elections
Right.
because
Exactly. Just like this is kind of what Ben Shapiro says. It's because conservatives and Republicans are more ideologues. Um, if the person who gets voted in is president or senator or anything else, or just let's just talk about presidents, um, and it doesn't conform to their ideology, say he's not conservative enough, like Trump, people just won't vote for him. People won't support him because they're ideologues. But then you go over to the left, and I mean, everybody hated Hillary. As soon as she gets in, as soon as she gets chosen, then everybody's on her back. Everybody's on board. Bam. So we don't have that unification that they do. Just because people, they try to hold. I feel like they hold to their beliefs more on the right than the left does.
exactly. And thing is, uh, that's the reason why they've been able to transform this culture. I mean, you can argue by the means that they've done it, all day. But I mean, the fact is, they've they've played dirty. That's the bottom line, and they've been very very successful in that regard.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying we gotta play dirty back, but I mean, what I am saying is what we've been doing clearly has not been working. And the fact of the matter is, it's not just the liberals trying to destroy this country, which has gotten it to the shape it's in. It's our fault too. We got barely some responsibility in it because the first step to solving the problem is realizing that there is one, and you know the concept of personal responsibility plays into that role too, because you know, I think there's a whole lot of spineless people in the Republican Party who isn't willing to take personal responsibility for anything. There's a lot of people who have basically just kind of trying to cater to the liberals because they want to seem like the more principled people. I mean, you don't stand on principles by catering to people. You don't stand on principles by um, look here. They always want to talk about how principled they are, but at the same time, they want to kind of leave the people who vote for them out in the cold. Like,
Yeah,
what was an
definitely. Just
example of
like,
this?
oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was trying to think of. There was this
I mean,
one guy I was thinking of. I can't remember his name, but you can
the
go ahead and
per-
make your point. I'll try to
basically
think of who he was.
perfect example what you're talking about is Marco Rubio.
Yeah, there
He
you go. That's what I was thinking of. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So basically, he ran in Florida saying no amnesty whatsoever, and then he got in bed with Chuck Schumer and a couple liberals, and they ended up writing this the Gang of Eight bill, which basically said that they were going to do essentially blanket amnesty, and yeah, he basically just did exactly what you said. He ran on principle. He got voted in on principle. Then he capitulated and tried to go along to get along. And
Yep.
luckily, the American people shot it down. But I mean, and that's one reason I don't like Marco Rubio, and the other one is because he stayed in the damn election process too long and ended up siphoning votes away from Ted Cruz, which is the guy that I like the most. And
Yeah, me too.
I think he'd have done better than Trump, no doubt, because he's a fucking genius. But yeah, so that just reminded me of Marco Rubio. So yeah,
Yeah, John Kasich did the same crap. Just
yeah,
for no reason. Just like, what the heck was his motivation to stay in the race that long? What the heck was he doing? And then
yeah,
trying to pontificate when he won that one state of his with Ohio. It was just an embarrassment.
yeah. I wrote a whole little article about him on my Facebook. I hate that guy.
Yeah, I would
um,
love to read that article because you seem to have a great insight on these matters, and I would love to see what you had to say about that.
I basically just shit on him for like 4 paragraphs.
Nice.
Yeah, I was pretty angry. Then, of course, whenever Ted Cruz drops out, he drops out one day later. I'm like, wow, thanks.
Exactly.
Yeah, but back like the RNC and some of the Republicans trying to deny Trump in a sense. We are a democracy in one sense that we get to vote democratically on who our representative is going to be. So I think we should definitely uphold that. But at the same time, I'm glad that our founding fathers put it in the context that they did, because we're basically a democratic republic. We vote for people to represent us. A true democracy would be a fucking nightmare, because if we were gonna decide on going to war or not, say, and if it was a true democracy, then just the average Joe would be voting yes or no. We don't have the intellectual resources that they do. So you find somebody who has the same ideology as you. Mine would be Ted Cruz, and then you vote for him to go think for you. Basically, it's like a representative process, and I think it's really good. But the democratic process that we have for picking that candidate, I mean, we chose Trump. I mean, everybody chose Trump. What are we going to do? The only way to deny Trump would be to go against the people. And the people chose. They voted for
Exactly.
him. So, I mean, there's nothing I don't think there's anything that we should try to do to change that.
Yeah, I agree. That's the thing. Most of the people did choose him, and I don't think it's a compromise in our principles. It's like he has enough solid. He's campaigning on enough principles that we agree on to where we should get behind him, and then let's say he gets elected and put in the office, and then we can have the conversation on all those other things we disagree with. But we're not going to even have a chance remotely to do all those things if we do not win this election.
Right.
There is not going to be any chance of that because you're going to have Hillary in there, and that's pretty much going to be effectively the end of the country, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a part of me that says, I mean, again, I would have to ignore the Supreme Court spots, but let's just say that those don't matter. There is a part of me and a part of a lot of the greater Republican thinkers like myself, like the top guys like Ben Shapiro and stuff. They think that, in a sense, Hillary getting in, she's going to continue down the Obama path, which has doubled our debt, has projected weakness globally, has um, put put Americans put Americans on the shelf for other countries' citizens, and so on and so forth. And she continues down that path for another 4 years. We'll continue to accrue this debt. Taxes will inevitably have to go up to and the citizens will have to bear that debt. So basically, their thought is, okay, let's if we let her in, if she wins, she'll take us down to the point where everyone will be fed up with her. Kind of like the Jimmy Carter Ronald Reagan transition, where Jimmy Carter fucked it up for 4 years, and then Ronald Reagan got voted in by a landslide, right? So
Yes,
that's the light at the end of the tunnel if she does get in, because she'll continue to take us down this liberal progressive path, and then we'll have a shining conservative win by a landslide and get in for the next 8 years and fix the economy similar to Ronald
that's
Reagan.
an interesting point. That's a very interesting argument. I never looked at it like that.
That's the
Hmm.
light at the end of the tunnel, but it's still a dark tunnel to go down.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta go down a whole long dark tunnel, a
Yes.
long and hard dark tunnel that at that. So I mean, absolutely, man. It's like maybe, you know, if that's what's gonna take to really wake this country up, then I mean, I guess in a sense I don't want to say I welcome that reality, but I mean, sometimes you just gotta let people, like you gotta let people go their own way and do what they want to do, and just to see if that like change them. It's like in the Bible when you talk about the prodigal son, and he wanted to go his own way and do his own thing, but then he found out his own way wasn't working, and he came back to the father and just begged for forgiveness, and the father welcomed him back, thankfully. But I mean, it's sort of like what we're dealing with in our country. So it's like we have the sort of an apathetic culture that's led to this insanity, and it's going to be like maybe Hillary can be the straw to break the camel's back. Maybe we will have to go through some dark times before people get like, okay, enough is enough, and then people start to wake up. So I guess she could be sort of a double-edged sword, so to speak. I guess.
Right. Yeah. And I think, along with accruing debt, which she'll continue to go down, and she'll continue to push Obamacare, which has been a big um, loser when it comes to increasing debt. I mean, it's just losing money right and left. But I think something that's more important than that, because people just see the national debt as just some number that doesn't matter to us. I mean, even taxes going up won't make people that outraged. But whenever you start looking at this cultural relativism stuff, and you start looking at the amount of refugees that come in and the amount of legal immigrants, which will change our culture for the worst demonstrably. I mean, there's so many studies talking about diversity and how cultural diversity is poison for nations. I mean, I could give you 20 studies about this. I mean, just like the EU, the referendum thing. I mean,
Yeah,
they started the cultural relativism stuff, and it's not what people want. And people think they want it, and then that you start seeing how terrible it is for the country, and all of a sudden people's eyes start waking up. I mean, the UK leaving the EU.
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. That was big.
this is a hardcore right wing stance. I mean, and they're a pretty left country too. So,
Absolutely, that was like monumental. Like,
and it wasn't I mean, maybe, I mean, I'm kind of talking over my head. I don't know shit about what it is like over there, but it seems like the cultural relativism stuff is what made people sick of it and vote right. And I
Oh,
think,
there's no question about that. I mean, Milo Yiannopoulos talks about that all the time, and a number of different people who've actually lived over there talk about that all the time. So you're actually right on the money.
yeah, so I think above taxes and above the debt, the the left, regressive left, um, quote unquote progressive movement for this cultural relativism thing will be the ultimate breaking of the camel's back. I think.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact is, these people cannot win on the arena of ideas. They can't win on logic, evidence, facts. Um, they literally make they like 95 to yeah, pretty much like 95% of their case on emotion, deception, misdirection, confusion, all this other sort of things. And maybe the other 5% are actually based on facts, but facts that they deceptively twist and spin and whatnot. So you got 95%, based on emotions, 5% based on facts, which they spin and twist. So basically 100% of what they argue on is complete, lies and deception, as a whole. And
Right.
the
Yeah.
fact,
I would definitely agree with that. And like a good example, I think a good example of why the Democrats, their platform is easier to sell and more appealing because it's this top down approach. Like whenever say something like welfare, right? Like
yeah,
we're gonna increase your welfare, or we're gonna make it easier to get, so on and so forth. I mean, telling people that they're going to get free this and free that, that's a pretty easy thing to sell. Now, you're talking about an immediate fix for a problem that's chronic, right? So what the Republicans want to do is go from the bottom up and say, look, we're not going to give you a handout, we're going to give you a hand up. But it's basically saying, look, we're going to help you succeed, but we're not just going to give you everything along the way. That's just a harder story to sell. And I think that's, even though it ultimately is looking out for the better of people, and we want them to be an active member in our economy, but and that ultimately would make people happier. But it's not an immediate fix. It's a longer fix from the bottom up, and it's harder to get people to rally behind that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a reason why they left the EU, man, and that's interesting. I want to talk about that for a little bit, actually. Britain leaving the EU. Did you hear about that lady that got shot? I can't remember her name, but apparently she was a supporter of the Vote Remain campaign, and no, she didn't get shot. She got stabbed. I mean, and it was basically by some deranged idiot who literally had absolutely nothing to do with either side of the campaign, and they shamelessly tried to use her case to promote their agenda.
Sounds like a liberal tactic to me.
Yes, and it was just absolutely disgusting. And they do these sorts of things all the time. They don't use literally anything, and I mean anything, to back their agenda. Because, like, on one side of their mouth, like when the dude, Robert Deere, who shot at a Planned Parenthood clinic, right? I guess he claimed to be a Christian, and he may have very well been one. But look, this guy shoots at a Planned Parenthood clinic, and he like kills 3 people, injures 9. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to downplay what he did, or saying that him killing a lower number of people makes it better for him. I'm just trying to make a point here. He didn't kill as many people as Omar Mateen did. Omar Mateen killed like 49, 50 people and injured many more. But when the Christian dude, to say that he was a Christian terrorist, all right? But when the dude who identified as a Muslim, Islamic Muslim, did it, then they wanted to say it was just I mean, they wanted to say it was just a mass shooting. They didn't want to, point to his Islam or anything like that, or associate it with his Islam. They was quick to say it was merely just a mass shooting in effort to try to, deceptively frame the issue and demonize the Second Amendment. And you see how they treat these issues here. A Christian can kill a lot less people, and he's a terrorist. But a Muslim, an Islamic Muslim, can kill a lot more, and it's just a mass shooting, and they don't even associate. In fact, not only did they not associate it with Islam, they even tried to directly or indirectly draw it to Christianity when a Christian wasn't even responsible for it. It's just amazing.
Right. And like whenever you look at what Bible verse, because I mean, I don't know much about it, but we're under like the new law or whatever, the New Testament. And basically, I mean, it's pretty clear. I mean, I can't remember what verse it is, but it's like you basically, it's like walk as Jesus. If you're gonna be a Christian, blah blah blah, then you should walk as Jesus walked. So I'm saying, okay, if we're under the New Testament law, and you're supposed to walk as Jesus walked, or you're not a Christian, or you're not of us, you never have been with us if you don't walk as Jesus walked. I mean, that's pretty
Hmm.
clear. I mean, it's not like Jesus was, shooting people or calling people to death or anything like that.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so it's something that you have to look at too. Like all these terrorist organizations, like Osama bin Laden, and people who are ahead of all these terrorist organizations, and I don't know Osama bin Laden in general, but most of these guys have PhDs in Islamic religion.
Yep,
Like the people who are in charge are the ones who understand their text the best. So I'm saying
exactly.
the more you understand about the Islamic religion, the more it seems to be a correlation. The more radical you are. I'm saying if you have a Islamic terrorist, I mean, for example, there was this guy that was on the news, some imam. He's like really famous, PhD or whatever, and he just straight up in the mic. Of course, we should kill gays. Like we shouldn't be embarrassed about saying this. It's like we are helping them by killing them. I'm like, wow. So whenever
And
you,
this was an Islamic Muslim person saying this.
yeah, he was an imam. He was like a one of he's basically like James White, but for Islam.
Okay, so they wasn't making a big deal when he said it, but when those other two dudes, that Anderson cat and that Jimenez dude, was talking about it, they was blowing it up to death.
Yeah, but think about what they were even saying. They were like, "Good, I hope they do die," right? But I never heard a call to
Hmm.
action like we should kill them. Those are two separate things in and of themselves. Like I
Yeah,
wish,
that's
I
that's
wish,
true.
I wish that gay people would die. That's one sentence. And then the other one is we should kill gay people. Now, to me,
That's
one's calling to
yeah,
action,
I agree.
one's not. So I don't know. There's no parallel in the 21st century. There's no parallel between radical Christianity and radical Islam. I mean, to
There
draw that
really
comparison is
isn't.
is is just to be retarded, in my opinion.
Yeah, there really isn't. I mean, I think this dude on YouTube by the name of Edgy Spinks made a very interesting point, and he thinks, I mean, in the Old Testament, it's true. It did say to stone homosexuals to death, and he didn't even talk about the law. But even in not, referring to, the new covenant, he made a good point. He said, if you look at, people who believe in, what the Bible says about the Old Testament, they, would see that it said to stone homosexuals, and they don't do it. That's quite different than, people seeing, what it said to kill homosexuals in the Quran, and they do it. So it's a difference between, the two things. It may, again, and just for the sake of argument, we're just ignoring the new covenant right here. Even if you ignore the new covenant, you can still clearly see the difference. In one, it says, to stone homosexuals, and Christians are not doing that. And then the other says to kill homosexuals, and they are doing it. There's a huge difference there. So there, most of the time, you know, people who actually follow their text are actually following up on what it says to do to gay people. They're actually following up on it and doing it, and that's quite a different thing than, not doing it at all, although it says in your book to do so. But again, this was just only assuming that we, for the Christianity, we just ignored the new covenant and all that other good stuff. But even if you ignore that, he still makes the argument that Christianity still comes out looking better, even with that in mind. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's definitely something that frustrates the hell out of me is whenever they try to draw some parallel between the two. I mean, like they'll talk about like the Crusades, and they'll kind of go back in history and say that Christianity had its bout of being super radical and all these things. I'm saying even if that is the case, at this point in time, who cares about history? How are people using their holy book? Are they using it for good, bad, or something benign in between?
Right,
I don't
right.
care. I don't care what Christians did, 500 years ago or whenever. I care what they're doing right now. And if they're not trying to kill me, then I don't care.
True
So,
that. Amen. I definitely agree with that, man. And like not and not the whole to trying to say this person wasn't a true Christian. I mean, I do think there's a level of things which happen to where they can person be like, okay, this made this person who are not doing things consistent with Christ's nature probably isn't a true Christian. But at the same time, um, I wasn't like, just arguing out entirely that just because someone does something really bad, that means they were not a Christian. And, those two ideas clearly aren't contradictory. And I wasn't trying to, shy away from, evil that Christians have done. It was just a sad thing that there were Christians who were involved in the Crusades. It was a sad thing that if Robert Deere was truly a Christian, that he did what he did at the Planned Parenthood clinic, and that's a messed up thing. And I wasn't trying to shy away from that or justify their actions or anything like that. But at least I can, as a believer, own up to it and say like, these people should not be doing these things. The problem with the liberals is they don't want to own up to what people in Islam are doing and have them own up to what they're doing, and they want to keep just bringing it back to Christians no matter what. Even if Christians weren't responsible, they'll try to be like, well, you Christians were probably happy this happened. They'll find like a few freaking nut jobs on net, like those two freaking nut job preachers, to try to just demonize the whole of Christianity, and it's just sick.
right. Yeah, definitely. I took my pre-workout right before I got in here, so I'm really jittery. I'm gonna go to the gym now.
All right, man. Thanks for coming in, man. It's always good talking to you, bro.
All right, take care.
Yep. All right. What's up, bro? Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
Yeah. Just taking this discussion back to where I started. Um, this hangout is for those who claim to be pro-choice to see if they can justify abortion without appealing to life-threatening cases and cases like rape. This is what this hangout is about. I mean, yes, it evolved into other subjects and topics and whatnot. I mean, that's going to happen sometimes, but my main purpose of this particular hangout is to get pro-aborts to or pro-choices or whatever they want to call themselves to justify abortion in general. I want them to stick to actually saying, look here, I don't care without even appealing to rape or without even appealing to life-threatening cases, I can still make a sound argument for my position. I'm challenging any pro-abort to come in here and make that argument. Because way too many times I've seen them, zero in immediately or almost immediately on these life-threatening cases and rape cases and stuff like this to try to build up sort of a foundation for their case. And I asked them so much that would you join me in banning abortion outside of these cases? Do you truly believe these are the only sorts of cases in which abortion should be legally permissible? And the overwhelming majority of the time, they say no, which tells me that they are being or coming from a level of intellectual dishonesty when they bring up those cases. So, what do you think about that, man?
Um, yeah, I just think it's just terrible that they like bring up these like I said, these life threatening cases just so they could try to justify what they're doing. But then in reality, that's not even their end goal. The end goal is not even to try to actually like ban abortion apart from those cases that and like they're exploiting it because of the like level of how bad it how bad it was.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right, man. That's literally not their end goal. Their end goal is to justify general abortion. They truly believe a woman has a right to her body by killing the unborn. That's what they believe. Um, and it has nothing to do with these rape cases or life-threatening cases or anything. I mean, I find it more honest to say that, look, that's part of why I get behind legalized abortion. I could be like, I can dig that if they were honest and be like, okay, I see these sorts of cases, and that's part of the reason why I think it should be legal. And if they say that, I think that's part of the reason, but that is not the underlying reason as to why I get behind it. If they were even honest in that approach, I can be like, okay, I see that you're coming from a more genuine position of honesty. I don't agree with what you're saying, but you are being genuine about it. I can get that. I can dig that. What I cannot dig is just the um, incessant need to just zero in on those cases, knowing that's not what you really truly believe, or not knowing that's not the real reason why the end goal for you is keeping abortion legal or making it legal, assuming hypothetically it was illegal wherever the debate is happening at. So this is why I started this show, because I want, to promote a level of honesty. I want people to just come, clean to the court. Stop, just stop being around the bush. Let's, stop the BS. Get to the core element. Get to the heart of the matter. What do you really believe? And when I ask them that question, time and time and time and time and time again, I'm getting the answer that, like, no, I would not join you in banning abortion outside these cases. And it's just totally dishonest. So this show here is seeing if they can make a general case for abortion rather than appealing to those sorts of cases. And let's see, I don't really know if anybody's going to come in here because I've had this hangout going for what, like an hour, maybe two almost, and nobody's come in here. So, what I typically like to do is um, I like to keep the hangout open for a little bit. I mean, if it doesn't seem like anybody's going to come in, then I'll just end the hangout entirely. But I get so sick of Pro-Aborts, coming at this discussion from a dishonest point of view. I get tired of them coming from a non genuine point of view when they want to bring up stuff like 10-year-old girls being raped and getting pregnant and all this other stuff. Um, and there are ways that we can address all those issues. There are answers to all those issues, and I've talked about them in quite some length in the past hangouts. In this particular hangout, I'm going to see if any pro board is willing to come in here and actually defend their position from a general level, that they truly believe a woman should have a right to her body by killing the unborn. From that framework, if you can't defend your position from that framework, then you need to stop. supporting legal abortion for those reasons, at least. You need to stop supporting it for any reason, period. But you need, especially, you need to stop supporting it for those reasons. And there's people that I know who have conceived in rape and absolutely abhor and condemn when pro-aborts use their cases to justify their killing arguments. A lady I know, about 23, 24 years ago, when she was 18 years old, conceived a child in rape. Was she 18 years old? I want to say, I think, was she 18 years old? Maybe. I don't know. I don't remember her exact age, but the point is, she conceived a child in rape, and she did not abort her child, and she would not change her decision for anything. And she has a 23, 24-year-old young man, very well productive in society, pro-life, and just, a joy to her life. And she will not change a thing. And when she sees people like these vicious pro-aborts using her case to argue their position, she cannot stand it. And she's probably less patient than I am. Because, I mean, I can be tough on pro-aborts, but she cannot stand when they try to exploit cases like hers to justify their killing position. She goes all in on them. You have pro-aborts that think I'm rude to them at times. You should see how she tears these people apart. So she doesn't have none of that crap. And this is what these pro-aborts do. Most of them just like to manipulate the conversation, manipulate you emotionally. They want to so badly appeal to this sort of rhetoric. They don't want to appeal to logic. They don't want to appeal to facts and reason. The only way they can do it is to try to mislead you on emotion. And pro-aborts know that I don't fall for this crap. I've literally had over 120 people refuse to debate me, and I'm not even exaggerating that number. Like I would, see pro-aborts across a number of different pro-life forums on Facebook, and a number of different pro-life threads, challenging them, like, hey, do you want to have a one-on-one live debate on this issue? Though a lot of people who would be active in these threads, these pro-aborts be active in these threads, be like, hey, do you want to have a live one-on-one debate with me? And time and time again, I've gotten them to refuse. Or I mean, not that I've gotten them to refuse, but they have refused. A lot of these pro-aborts just like to troll online, like to just hide behind their protective cloak, sort of text chat. They don't like to give arguments, off the cuff and, in a one-on-one live conversation, sort of like this. They're not prepared to do it because all they're used to doing is having their kind of stock answers, their kind of propaganda talking points, their buzzwords, just their SJW type feeling responses. They're used to doing that sort of stuff and trying to troll and bully people on these forums and text chat threads. But when you put their feet to the fire, it's like, they cannot, and they're not prepared to defend themselves. They cannot defend themselves. And over 120 of them up to now have refused to have a live one-on-one debate with me. These people know that they can't justify their position. You cannot justify the unjustifiable. You really can't do it. I don't think abortion is a difficult subject. A lot of people do. I don't think so. I think it's as simple as you don't kill a child in the womb, point blank. You don't do it. You don't intentionally kill a child in the womb. That's it. End of discussion. Um, are you going to have those times to where you have the mother, the life of the mother and the child hanging in the balance? Yes, you are going to have those issues, but that literally has nothing to do with the general issue of abortion. Going to those cases doesn't, make abortion a tough issue. That just means you're gonna have issues with the mother and the child hanging in the balance. That doesn't mean that it has any effect on the principle that you don't, just intentionally, maliciously take the life of a child. You cannot use emotionally draining cases like that to make the case that abortion is a difficult issue, because I don't think it is. Yeah, you got cases like that. Those are that can be emotionally draining. Those sorts of issues may be an emotional difficulty, and you can't get around the fact that it's a very, very heavy emotional difficulty to deal with. But that doesn't make it an intellectually sound argument. Just because something may be very, very difficult emotionally to deal with does not make it an intellectually sound argument. And it's important for people to understand that when they trying to argue the abortion position. Separate the emotional aspect from, separate the take, stay on the intellectual aspect and take out the emotional aspect, and done deal. It's just that simple. These pro-aborts want to talk about a woman having a right to her body, but the problem with this argument is they don't believe in the most optimal way a woman should control her body. And what I mean by that is this. Let's say someone wants to lose weight, okay? And in order to lose weight, maybe they have to cut out a lot of junk food that they've been eating. And they have to refrain from eating a lot of junk food. They have to eat better. They have to eat more healthy. They have to make better food choices. And in them changing up the things that they do, they have to cut out a whole lot of junk food. They have to refrain from eating junk food, right? And what better way to show that you have control over your body and over you wanting to get healthy than to cut out a lot of junk food? What better way is there to show control than to do that? And in the same way, if we're talking about sex, what better way to show that you have control over your body and you don't want to get pregnant than to refrain from having sex at a certain time, to be celibate or abstinent at a particular time? What better way to show that you have control over your body than to just say, you know what? If I'm not ready for a child at this time, I just won't have sex. If I'm not ready for the possibility of a child to be conceived at this time, I just won't have sex. It's really that simple. What better way to show that you have the most optimal control over your body than to refuse to have sex at a time to where you're not willing to risk the possibility you could have a child? Just like what better way to show that you have control over your body than to refrain from eating certain types of junk food if you want to get healthier and lose weight? Does that make sense, somebody?
Yeah, it does.
And that's why I don't buy a lot of these pro-aborts arguments, because they want to talk about a woman having control over her body, but they don't. But most of them don't believe in the most optimal way to make that happen. The the best way to show that you have the most control, and I would dig what they were saying if they truly believed in that concept. I'd be like, yes, you should have control over your body, and I think you would show that you have the most control over your body by refusing to have sex at a particular time to where you're not ready to conceive a child. It's really that simple. If you don't want to risk that possibility, then don't have sex. But you cannot sit up here and tell me that that you want the door to be open to kill your own children yet have sex at the same time. No, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have it both ways. If you are going to have sex, then don't complain about the possibility that a child may be conceived when you're not ready. It's that simple. I don't know why pro-aborts make this complicated. It's not that difficult. If you don't want to risk, you know, you getting unhealthy, then stop eating a bunch of junk food. Stop putting a bunch of junk food in your mouth all the time. You increase that risk when you do that. When you don't eat healthy, you just eat junk food endlessly and whatnot. That you're not going to show that you have any sort of control over your body, any sort of meaningful, legit control over your body by doing such a thing. And in the same way, you're not showing that you have control over your body by getting an abortion. You've shown that you do, in fact, do not have control over your body by getting an abortion. You've shown that you are susceptible and submissive to the most non-optimal way to have control over your body. Because those who truly show control over their body can be like, look, I'm going to restrain from this activity because I know it's going to potentially risk the chance of a child being conceived at a time I don't want the child to be conceived. That is the best way to show that you have control over your body, the best way to exercise that sort of constraint. Those who remain celibate and abstinent when they're not ready to have a child are the ones who are showing the most powerful control over their body, who truly believes in a right to control their own body. Controlling your own body is, I would like to think, is doing the most optimal thing for yourself to avoid a situation. That's what I think true control, legit control over your body is about. Not by refusing to accept the possibility a child may be conceived when you have sex and then taking the child out when you're not ready. That doesn't show control to me. That just shows a lack of personal responsibility. And it shows that you're just making excuses. That's all it shows to me. So, what do you think about that?
Like, I definitely see your point because like they always talking about how they should have a choice or how women have control over their body, but apparently don't have enough control to refrain from sex.
Exactly. That's the key term right there. They don't have enough control to refrain from sex. You want to talk about having control, but you don't have enough control to refrain from. I'm still in that, and I'll give you credit. I did not make up that phrase. That little statement right there was just gold. You want to say you want to control your body, but you do not have enough control to refrain from sex. That is just, yeah, I think that just really just drives the point home. It hits the nail on the head so smoothly. You want to say that you want to control your body, but you ain't showing enough control or the kind of control to not have sex. Because um, yes, I could say I want to control my. I want to say I could say I want to control my body to be healthy, but I'm not gonna control my body to be healthy by eating junk food all. That's not gonna happen. I want to control my body to avoid getting pregnant. You're not gonna do that by having sex. It's not gonna happen. The potential to uh, unless you get like a full a full hysterectomy, unless you do something like that or get your tubes tied, you're not going to prevent sex. You're not going to prevent pregnancy and conception from happening when you have sex. It's not going to happen. The potential is always going to be there. This whole control your body argument is just a red herring. It's not even the real issue with pro-aborts. It honestly isn't. The issue is they don't want to take personal responsibility and they want to have the door open to kill off their own offspring because they don't want to take personal responsibility. And that is the core issue. And they'll make up any sort of excuse to justify that. They'll dehumanize the unborn. They will compare the unborn to just a mere sperm or egg gamete. They'll compare the unborn to any type of cell, like a skin cell. They'll even compare it to a parasite. They'll say that it's not really a child, it's not really a person. All these excuses, it's just their way of not shouldering their personal responsibility. They want to point the finger elsewhere to all these other directions. They know that they are the problem. They don't want to admit that they are the problem. They are the problem, okay? As me being a filthy sinner who needs Jesus Christ, I am the problem. Jesus is not the problem. I am the problem. I need a savior. I know I'm the problem. I can't sit up here and say that I want to be free from sin, but don't want to go to the person who can take me away from that. I can't say that I want to change from my ways, but don't want to go to the person who can change me to do that. I can't sit up here and say I want to, and in the same way, I can't sit up here and say I want to control my body, but don't want to do the things that would allow me to control my body at the most optimal to prevent pregnancy. If you think controlling your body means that you don't have to take personal responsibility, then you can literally justify anything. That sort of argumentation would justify even, things like suicide. Like saying, "Oh, I want to control my body," so I'm, maybe somebody's dealing with, a huge depression, and I don't even think most pro-aborts would buy this. But if we assume that their logic, it would have to go to the logical conclusion that if someone wanted to commit suicide and it was not ready to they just wanted to end everything. They were going through a severe depression. They couldn't take it anymore. They just wanted to end it all and walk in front of a train and just kill themselves. Technically speaking, that would be a way that that person was controlling their body. According to pro-abort logic, all that person did was control their body. That's it. According to pro-abort logic, They were controlling their body and they had the right to do so. They had the right to control their body to kill themselves. That sort of suicide, they're going to say that there was exercising the right to control their body. I mean, I don't really know how you can get around it. There's more to this pro-abortion or pro-choice argument than the fact that they believe a woman should have a right to control her body. That's not the whole issue here. But yet they argue that as the core selling point. Those, I cannot tell you how often I've gotten virgin shamed because I'm 30 years old and I'm still a virgin, and I have no problem admitting that on live air or in public to anybody. And I've gotten, for me, having my relentless pro-life stance and my stance on abstinence and being celibate and whatnot, I've gotten relentlessly like attacked by pro-aborts and shamed and be like, "Whoa, you will never get pregnant. You are just some freaking scumbag who needs to go get laid." I cannot tell you how often I've had my virginity attacked, but I'm the one showing control and restraint over my body. They aren't. They just been all they're doing is saying, they're gonna wear a condom and just hope nothing happens. That's all they're doing. But you know what? I can dig those who may use contraception like a condom or something like that. And they're like, you know what? I'm going to try not to get pregnant and, having sex. I'm going to avoid getting pregnant. But if I do get pregnant, or if I impregnate a woman, if I'm a man, I accept my responsibility for the child that's being brought into this world. And I can dig that and respect that. If people want to have sex, that's their business. But I can dig the person who says, look, I'm not going to stop having sex. I'm going to have sex whenever I want to. But if a child is conceived in my activities, then I'm going to accept the responsibility for my actions and bring this child into the world. If that child is conceived in my doing so, then you know what? I accept that responsibility. I'm not going to kill this child because I wanted to have sex. I accept my responsibilities for my actions, the activities I'm engaging in, and this child is going to be brought into the world. And what we do with the child will go from there. Maybe we'll seek adoption. Maybe we'll decide to raise the kid. But I'm not going to say that this child deserves to die because I want to get my personal rocks off. And those who are honest about that and accept that responsibility, I can dig that. I have no problem with that. But that's the problem though. A whole lot of people do not, in fact, accept that personal responsibility, and they want to try to make the issue way more difficult than it is. Like, I don't like the idea and this and that. Like, don't give me that nonsense that you don't like the idea and all this other stuff, because you can say that you don't like the idea of rape all day, but you're not going to think it should be legal in any capacity. I don't know. I don't like the idea of rape, but I mean, that's just stupid. I'm drawing the issue back to the brutal, just malicious killing of the unborn. That's what's happening. And it does not change that fact that offspring, that child cannot feel what is happening. Because, like, let's say early in pregnancy, they want to say the child hasn't developed the nervous system to feel that or whatever. So what? That doesn't mean anything. All that means is you doing harm to this child, but the child cannot feel it. That's all it means. This is another common fallacy from these pro-aborts. They try to conflate hurt and harm, or maybe not conflate hurt and harm, but fail to make that distinction with hurt and harm. There's a difference between hurt and harm. Here's the thing. Um, physical physical hurt physical hurt can almost always be harm, but that doesn't mean all harm equals physical hurt. And what I mean by that is this: look at a paraplegic, one who was paralyzed in their legs, and they're using a wheelchair to get around. Somebody may slap them in their legs with a 2x4, but they don't feel the hurt from it. They don't feel the pain from it. The hurt, the pain right there, they don't feel. But just because they don't feel the hurt, the pain from it, does not mean that they were not harmed from it. You see, hurt does not mean that you failing to feel the hurt from something does not mean that you are not harmed from something. The actual hurt is a detection of there's something going on with the body that should not be going on. The brain, when you feel the hurt from something, the brain says, the body sends a signal to the brain that something irregular is happening, something that should not be happening to the body is going on. You have a problem with the body, and the body needs to be resolved. So your body is being hurt right now. And so the body has to heal what's going on. It sends a signal to the brain to say that there's a problem, and now the body has to go fix this problem. The body informs the brain that there's a problem, and that's what hurt means. But harm is, a little different, because you may be harmed but not actually know it. Like the paraplegic who gets hit with a 2x4 in their legs, they have no idea that their body is in a state of harm because they don't feel the hurt from it, and there's no signal being sent to the brain that there's something going on. But they are still harmed though. So the lack of pain feeling early at the earliest points in pregnancy does not mean there is no harm happening there. You can't get around that fact. I really love when pro-aborts try to use the lack of pain argument or the lack of hurt as if it's some sort of point. It's not. It's stupid. Let's just call it what it is. It's flat out freaking stupid. So what do you think about that, bro?
Like basically what you said. I can't really like explain it any better. But like yeah, like just like you said, like pain. It doesn't. The pain doesn't dictate to whether what you're doing is wrong or not.
Yep.
Just because somebody doesn't feel pain, it doesn't mean that they're not being harmed.
That's right.
And I think it's stupid to make that argument.
Yep, this is one of the many dumb ways they make their point. But I mean, when you doing something just just as bad and horrible as trying to find a way to justify killing an innocent child, this is the nonsense you're gonna end up with. This these are sorts of mental gymnastics that they try to employ. And yeah, so many just oh man, so many bad arguments that they use to try and justify killing unborn children. Just so many just terrible points that they and just arguments. It's just ridiculous. This is why I started this show. I'm sick and tired of this culture of pro-aborts using this terrible reasoning. And it is my hope and prayer that this show grows tremendously to reach as many minds as possible. Because we are in a culture war here. We are in a war of paradigms. Those who justify, death as opposed to who wants to fight on the side of life. We are in a culture war here, and I intend to be standing on the front lines of this war. It is my belief, my honest belief that I believe that God put me on this earth to be a voice for the unborn, to be a relentless voice for these children mercilessly killed in the womb. And I will not relent in that mission. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get any pro-aborts in here to argue their position, but maybe I'll do a show later on, possibly. Um, I don't know, maybe sometime later on tonight, maybe tomorrow, and we'll see if we can, you know, get a different result. So I'm not gonna keep rambling on any longer. I'm gonna go ahead and just hang out. So uh, thanks for coming, bro. Everyone, thanks for watching. Comment and subscribe. God bless.